Welcome to the HMG Executive Leadership Spotlight. Here's our host, Hunter Muller.
Welcome to the HMG Spotlight. I'm Hunter Muller, founder and CEO of HMG Strategy. I'm here with Brad Bell, CITO and CISO for Infoblox. Brad, congratulations on being a 2023 HMG Global Leadership Institute recognized CIO of the Year.
Thank you, Hunter. Appreciate it. And I'm so happy to be here.
Amazing times, truly innovative times, and disruptive times. What are the top three things that are weighing on you or are critical for your success, for the enterprise's success, and the business success?
Great question, Hunter. I think, I'd be remiss if I didn't say security and security posture for the company, given our unfortunate environment that we all live in as professionals here. That's number one. Number two, you're well aware of AI and its impact on business and the future that it holds here. So that is one area that we're looking at very carefully at, because we want to make sure we balance the hype cycle with the reality of implementation and keep it safe yet productive. And the third thing I'd say is really around tying our business strategy and capabilities with technology back into the business on an ongoing basis. So, we at Infoblox have grown tremendously. We're up to, I think, 1,200 people now, on our way to 2,000, over $1 billion in recurring revenue. And along with that comes the typical challenges and creaks in the fabric of any company. We deal with loss of employees, particularly in the sales force, right? It's a churn. And so simple things like training and enablement for your field sellers, so they actually understand how to use the tools that have been provided, become critical. If that falls off, then of course it feels like those tools aren't working to their optimal capabilities, when actually they are. You have a training issue, not necessarily a tools issue. So there's always a balance on the technology and platform and enablement piece that we are continually renewing against in the company, if you will.
Interesting insights. Brad, we're studying visionary leadership and visionary leaders. You've always impressed me, being based in Silicon Valley, as truly a visionary leader. What does visionary leadership mean to you?
Oh, thank you, Hunter. That's very kind of you. For me, one of my favorite things to do in coming into a company is tying that strategy and having that seat at the table to the technology. When I started Infoblox, and I've been at Cisco and Microsoft, and certainly all those had unique variants of how we organize, what we do, how we bolt into the business and create value. At Infoblox, I presented at the board and I said, look, in a SaaS company that's growing like we are, IT doesn't play a G&A role like a typical IT department they might be looking at us as. It plays a strategic role, and it's a connection point between the product and the customer experience. And so if we believe in that hypothesis and we embrace it, then IT needs that seat at the table, and it needs to be able to tie closely to the product engineering and release the development lifecycle with the same tool stacks, the same commit processes, the same language, the same org constructs. And equally, on the other side, we need to recognize that the information that flows from what is our CRM and our customer information portal back through the SaaS platforms into our customer service and support become equally as critical as well. And so you can't have a failure on either side of that equation, which means things like target state architectures need to be important. And our business doesn't necessarily want to hear about that, but so we do that under the covers to help make sure that the integrity of the data, the information that's flowing across that value chain, actually works well. And now you can start to do really exciting things, like from our data lake, build analytics and decision support capabilities that are kind of unheard of at the scale we're operating at and the value that we're creating around it, because it's been thought out well, and it's tying, again, that strategy to the execution layer and the operations underneath that.
Brad, you've done some amazing work in your career and some amazing work at Infoblox. How did you break through the C-suite and the engineering side of the house to have such a credible position and platform looking across the whole organization?
Well, it's not easy. And I would say it hasn't been the case in every job I've had, right? If you look at typical software development engineering and IT, there's usually some tension in that relationship. The good news about Infoblox is the CTO and I used to work together quite closely at Cisco, and so that was a great partnership there. It alleviated all those frictions about we do this better than IT or vice versa. There was no ego involved there, so it allowed us to do things like bring the teams together around common technology stack and common roles and responsibilities. So we weren't duplicating things in ours, which was good for the company. And so that's been one of the unique factors at Infoblox that allowed me to move faster with less friction on that particular side of the house.
Talk to us a little bit more about your C-suite engagement, specifically with the CEO.
Yeah, so the CEO and I, so the CTO, so the CTO used to work for me at Cisco. So he brought me in from what was a Microsoft opportunity that I had. And he also used to work for the CEO of Infoblox. And so there was this natural triangle, and we were all, reasonably technical. The CEO was a product strategist at Oracle and PeopleSoft and really understood technology very well. So it was easy for him to come to the table along with my counterpart, the CTO, and have that relationship and understanding and get the agreement and alignment before you go into the board. And the board, couldn't really, one of the strategies around lining IT to the products and things was so that if you were going to fund engineering capability, which typically happens, right? You fund engineering and sales to get the products moving in the market, et cetera, but you underfund G&A typically, right? This allowed us to bring IT up to that operating level and think about it differently at the board level, right? Because we are an equal participant in that value chain now, and we follow the same practices, procedures, job roles and definitions, and everything else that engineering does. So if you're going to question me in IT about how we participate in that value chain, then you're questioning essentially how engineering does their role as well. And so this was a great strategy, particularly for Infoblox, because it really conjoined engineering and IT in a way that made sense from a business perspective when you talk about that relationship between the products and the customers through IT as that transformation vehicle.
And you're well along the way in pivoting the company to an ARR model, a SaaS model, right?
Oh yeah, that's happened. There's a few stragglers from a customer perspective on perpetual, but we're cleaning that up this year. We've managed to pivot that aspect of the company in the last 2 years. It's been transformational, very beneficial. And it's always the challenge to get the sort of the last mile of customer base off the perpetual licensing model, but it's been done. It's been very successful. And now we're seeing the benefits of that. The reoccurring revenue cycle that happens there is pretty unbelievable. The amount of inertia that has for us is really going to allow us to refresh the technology that we have and continue to innovate in other areas to expand our TAM. So it's been very, very helpful.
When you think about leadership matters. How would you characterize your leadership style and what's working for you now?
I like to, I'll say just generally empathetic leadership is important. Tying and understanding to people, because people create results. Technology will always be here, but for me, what sustains my career and my ecosystem, if you will, are the people around me who are willing to come work with me when I have a new opportunity, or vice versa, right? That transcends any particular company that you may work at. And so for me, it's about having that empathetic leadership that goes well beyond a particular project or program that you're doing and extends into, hey, I remember going to companies where I said, look, I walk the talk. I'm not going to ask you to do something I haven't done before and I'm not willing to do. And I'd walk into data centers in the middle of, the weekend in my shorts and flip-flops, and they'd say, no executive's ever been in this data center. And I said, well, I was serious. And this creates a following. It's like and I said, let's sit down. I brought some pizza in and I said, let's sit down and talk about friction points you have. What would you want to change? How? And it's connecting with people in that way. The next week they're sitting in the hallways talking about, hey, he was in the data center with us. He said he was going to do it. He actually did it. I can't believe it. And he was listening to us. And so this creates a fellowship and almost like a peer relationship. I don't like to create uh, the ivory tower where I'm not willing to listen. I like to tie, particularly when we're doing strategy, what I call the top of the organization to the bottom. The folks at the edge of the functions and the relationships that make things happen there are super important involving the strategy, because when the voice is heard from that level, they have one, great insights, but two, you get better buy-in. So everybody is charging at the hill with the same goals because they felt they had a say in it and it was real. And so these are some of the principles to me that create great fellowship, and great results as a result of how we go about doing that.
Inspiring insights. What kind of career advice would you give people, and what's worked for you in your career?
Well, those are way different things. I'd say get a mentor. I've never been good at having a mentor. I am better now, but when I started my career, I never thought twice about it because I was always just working, like crazy. And so having a good, solid mentor, of course, gives you sponsorship, gives you insight, hopefully gives you coaching on how to handle situations, um, get you those insights that maybe you wouldn't have had through, or you would eventually have had through a longer life cycle in any particular company or experience. I think those are some of the key things. Be open-minded, be willing to learn from every source at every level, because the technology, as you know, Hunter, changes so drastically all the time. You can't possibly know everything all the time, everywhere. And so being connected to that employee base, being connected to board members, being connected to peer groups, which is great about HMG, right? You get a great set of peers to talk to. These are all critical components to being current and relevant, and really keeping that following together.
It's really exciting to work in Silicon Valley. What is it about Silicon Valley that keeps you engaged and inspired and excited?
Well, I love the art of the impossible, we'll call it. I love to be swatted into things where people say that is the biggest mess I've ever seen, or it's impossible to fix, or boy, that's a really hard thing to solve for. For me, what gets me inspired is driving towards that art of the impossible, making it possible, and hiring the right team to make sure that together we can achieve that goal here. I get really excited along with that, tying that strategy to the execution layer. I always say strategy is about 5 minutes of the hour dialogue. The rest of it's hard work. And so being able to drive those two aspects, so you know that the strategy actually paid off, or it didn't, you need to change, to me are part and parcel to the whole equation of what success looks like for me personally. So that gets me excited.
Excellent. And what does winning look like for you?
Well, a winning is when those two things meet, right? It's when that strategy that all the hypotheses that you have, and you look back a year, 2, 3, whatever your strategy entailed there, you look back and go, wow, we did it. We did it because we laid out the thinking around this and the strategy around it and the execution model around it, and put the right people in place. And now we can look back and be proud at what results have been achieved here. It's really hard when you get in bigger and larger firms to be able to look over your shoulder and go, yeah, we did that as a team. And that's something to be proud of. And this is what I like to be able to tie those things together, regardless of the size, and make it and celebrate that. Just make it clear that the results you have are a result of the thinking that started all this off, the team that was built here, our operational rigor around getting to those results and measuring that outcome and continually improving on that.
Hey, Brad, congratulations for being a 2023 HMG Global Leadership Institute Tech Leader of the Year recipient. Congratulations.
Thanks, Hunter. Thank you for the time. Really appreciate it and enjoyed our conversation.
For more information, please visit hmgstrategy.com and keep up to date by following us on our social media platforms. Thank you.